idle games, incremental games, play while working, sleeping, and studying games. It is kind of the ultimate gamer move to play even when you don't play, right? That's why I've got 9 awesome mobile indie idle games lined up for you guys here today, including several bonus games for those watching the entire video. And we will, kick it off with one of the really good ones, Idle Research. Because despite the somewhat confusing UI, this is one of the better new idle games I've played this year. It's basically a resource management game about crafting flasks that produce energy. But as we progress, we then unlock lots of new features and gameplay elements, including even combat. Now, at the core of the game is the decision making about which of our crafters should produce which type of flask. And since each new flask tier increases the efficiency of the previous tier, but also costs some of the previous tier to produce, it's all about finding that perfect balance. It monetizes through a few in-app purchases and incentivized ads, but none of it is really pushed heavily. So if you enjoy resource management games with a decent pace, I think you'll like this one. Next up is Nordicandia, which is basically what you get if Nonstop Night and Diablo had a baby. So that means it's a truly unique semi-idle action RPG, and what really sets it apart is, first of all, that it features a lot of character customization through stat points, skills, and items. Secondly, that we can chat with other players and even join guilds. And lastly, that it uses a season system similar to Diablo, which means we try to reach certain milestones every season, after which our character retires and we start a new one. Now, on the other hand, the biggest downside is that the item and crafting systems are so in-depth that the number of stats and affixes take quite a while to fully get into, not to mention the lackluster art style. Nordicandia monetizes via a $10 season pass, in-app purchases for a premium currency, and a few incentivized ads. But we also get plenty of free premium currency through just gameplay, and none of the upgrades are necessary to enjoy the game. So if you liked Nonstop Night, this is definitely worth checking out. The third game is Melvor Idle, which is just perfect if you've ever played and enjoyed RuneScape, because it is essentially an idle version of RuneScape's gathering, crafting, and combat systems. So just like in RuneScape, we level up a range of skills from level 1 to 99, which gradually allows us to fight tougher monsters and collect higher tier resources. And while crafting and resource gathering is idle, combat requires the game to be open, so there's a nice mix of both active and idle elements. You can also play the game cross-platform on mobile, browsers, and PC, and as someone who personally loves RuneScape, Melvor Idle is just a no-brainer to recommend. The game is free to try, by the way, with a $10 in-app purchase unlocking the full game, and it currently sits at a 79% positive user rating score on my games discovery platform, MinReview. And as a quick bonus recommendation, you might also want to check out Realm Grinder if you like idle games with a lot of freedom. Next up is Almost a Hero, which sticks to the good old clicker game recipe. Tap the screen to deal damage, kill monsters to gain gold, use that gold to buy heroes that deal damage for us automatically, reset all progress to gain a permanent stat boost, and then repeat. So if you're new to the idle game genre, you can't really go wrong with this one. And what the game lacks in gameplay innovation, it more than makes up for with its super clean fantasy art style, great humor, and fine-tuned and decently paced progression. The game is free, just like a sub to this channel is, by the way, and it doesn't try to shove its in-app purchases down our throats, so it's definitely worth checking out. The next game is different, to say the least. Its name is IdleOn, and it's basically a grindy open-world idle MMO with resource collection, crafting, and a level design and combat system that draws inspiration from MapleStory's platform-based 2D world. What really sets the game apart, though, is that we can control 6 characters, full customizing each with unique stats and classes. And while we play one at a time, the others then continue playing automatically in the background. So there's a mix of both active and idle play. I personally really liked IdleOn when I played it, but its many gameplay systems also take some time to get into, and there is a lot to manage in this game, maybe even too much. It monetizes through a few different in-app purchases that go up to $19.99 US that definitely improve the game and allow you to progress faster, but its unique gameplay still make it a worthy recommendation. And as a bonus game, if you want to go really hardcore, then you might also want to check out the Dark Souls of incremental games, Kittens games. Just don't tell me that I didn't warn you here. Now, the next game, called Pixel Tribe, is also the newest of the bunch, releasing just a few weeks ago. And I'm really excited about this one, as it's something as unique as an incremental and semi-idle village building game with resource management, turn-based combat, and lots of nice RPG elements. So what makes the game idle is that our villagers will continue doing whatever we set them out to do even when we close the game, such as finishing a new building or collecting resources. The game's biggest downside, though, is that returning to it after opening another app reloads everything, which is especially frustrating during combat, but that hopefully gets fixed later on. Now, it monetizes through in-app purchases used to hire a few extra Vikings and get a temporary small XP and efficiency bonus. But since none of it is necessary to progress in the game, I'm happy to recommend this as the best semi-idle city building game I think I've ever played on mobile. Game number 7 is the second Soda Dungeon game, which is an idle dungeon crawler RPG with an 80% positive user score on Mini Review. Now, the core gameplay loop in this game has us hire units to take on dungeon runs and then use the loot from these fights to upgrade our soda bar, which in turn lets us hire better units, craft gear, and micromanage the tavern. It is a bit of an unusual idle game, and it does force you to have the game opened on your phone to progress properly, but it is both idle and incremental regardless, and I actually think many of you are really gonna enjoy the fun theme and the progression in this game. Soda Dungeon 2 monetizes via a few optional ads to revive, the occasional forced video ads, and then in-app purchases that let you progress faster. But none of this ever really gets in the way of the fun in this game, so I would say definitely check it out. Next up is another follow-up game, Tap Wizard 2, which is an idle RPG with reverse bullet hell inspired gameplay, which means our wizard gets bombarded with enemies and bullets from all sides, while it automatically attacks using the abilities we've equipped. And by the way, if you like these magic survival games, I did an entire video about them recently, so check that out after this one. Now, what I really enjoyed about Tap Wizard 2 is all its many and really deep systems that unfold as we progress in the game. And unlike most idle games, there are even multiple different things we can reset to gain stat boosts, not to mention that it synchronizes with your progress on Steam as well. The biggest downside to this game is that there really isn't all that much strategy to the gameplay, but if you like seeing numbers go up while gradually leveling up a wizard with more and more over-the-top abilities, this is an easy recommendation. It monetizes through in-app purchases used to remove the few incentivized ads and unlock permanent stat boosts, but as with all the games I've picked today, it can easily be enjoyed as a free player. Now, the next game is Merchant, and this one is admittedly on that line between being an idle or just an incremental game, but it does get more and more idle over time, so it got a spot here. The gameplay is basically all about sending heroes out to fight automatically and then use the resources gained to craft items, sell those items to visitors in our shop, or equip them to improve our heroes. And since we need both resources and lots of gold to craft items, it's all about finding that right balance between which items to equip, which to sell so we don't run out of gold, and how to best manage our inventory. Now, where the idle part comes in is that after some hours of active gameplay, our heroes eventually learn how to fight for about 30 to maybe even 40 minutes at a time, allowing us to close the game and just come back later on. Merchant monetizes through a few incentivized ads and then in-app purchases for DLC packs that add new maps and new heroes. It'll cost about $15 to unlock everything, but the DLC isn't necessary to enjoy the game. Which was your favorite of the bunch? Let me know, and be sure to check out this video about the best vampire survival alternatives on mobile, you know, for something to play in between checking these idle games.